A little while ago, I did another one of these videos where I bought 10 random Steam keys and it was really fun. But what I didn't mention is that I actually bought another 10 random keys and here we are. Again, I used the site fanatical.com and in the first video I got some pretty decent games. But how well did it go the second time? Did I get the mythical Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 gold key, or did I finally get scammed? Let's find out. Our first game is the Text Assist, the story of Ray Bibia. It's one of those games that use typing for the gameplay and it's actually done quite well. We play as Ray Bibia, an exorcist, and we go around the city to people in need of exerting. It's a sort of bullet hell game where you need to dodge around projectiles while casting spells at your enemies, but you need to type out every single letter of your spells as you go along. And it's kinda hard, honestly. I'm decently good at typing, but I'm no typing tournament professional, don't make fun of me. So I had to quickly scan my screen before glancing at my keyboard and it was tough. Especially since I could only use one hand to type while I used the other to move with the arrow keys. But rather than the controls feeling really clunky or gimmicky, everything was rather smooth and, dare I say, fun. Every enemy you encounter has very interesting attacks and characteristics, and although your gameplay remains the same every time, everything works rather well together. The story is also very interesting and quite hilarious with its dialogue. You type to navigate the menus, type to investigate on your computer, and type to enter your next location. It's very intuitive. W. I'd also just like to mention that I spent roughly 20 minutes on each game for each of these reviews, so that also shapes my perspective on my experiences, just like in I'm Not a Monster: First Contact. This is a turn-based combat game and I ain't gonna lie, the only closest game I've played to this was Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, but yeah. You play as actors in the future and play out scenes from the movie you're playing in, along with wacky adventures in their day-to-day life. At least that's what I got out of it from my playtime. I wish I spent more time with it so I could actually figure out what the game was about, and because my whole time playing was just the tutorial, it got kind of annoying. It was like the game thought I never played a video game before, but it's whatever. The gameplay is quite fun with the interesting combinations of items and movement you have at your disposal. Every mission or level does feel very short, but the story and art style is really well done, and playing the game feels like I'm reading a comic book from the 60s. I'll give it a W. And our next game is Shields of Loyalty, another strategy game. What is up with all of these? I ain't gonna lie, I did not have a good time with this one. This is the most generic, boring, and slow strategy game I've ever played. This was my genuine reaction when I played for 20 minutes and barely anything had happened. We still fucking playing? What the shit? Yeah, no, I'm fucking quitting this. I couldn't tell you anything about this game that I thought was cool or unique. Just imagine the most boring strategy game you can think of and that's all this game was. And it did quite a poor job at even that. Attacking was as simple as clicking on an enemy and just waiting for the animation to finish and just repeating that with every troop until they eventually died. The story was uninteresting and I didn't even know what to do other than escape and keep my big boss man alive. And I could say, oh, no bad games exist, this just isn't for me, and I did kinda enjoy my time with it, but I really didn't. This has to be an L. Just like the next game, Alchemist Adventure. I also did not have a good time with this one. From a sheer game design standpoint, this game is horrendous. The initial art design is cool and the sound design isn't too bad either, but the game locks you into this awkward top-down camera view. It couldn't have been that hard to simply make it third person, but that's not even my biggest gripe just yet. Almost instantly, the game throws a bunch of complex menus and UIs about what the game is about. Alchemy? Like, what the fuck am I meant to be looking at? And no, I'm not reading all of that. It's actually quite a simple mechanic, but the game does a horrible job at telling the player what to do. And the story as well. I'm sure it might be interesting, but the game just gives the player a bunch of flashbacks, more menus, and repetitive dialogue that tries to tell the player what's going on, but at this point, I don't care about any of these people. I just want to know what the fuck I'm meant to be doing. And it kept up with this cycle of giving you an item, 10 pages of text and complex UI, then a flashback or story I don't give a shit about for my whole time, until eventually I got soft locked and had no clue how to get out of here. In my time playing, it felt like a mashup of overly complex tutorials of overly complex mechanics wrapped in a package of bad game design and bad choices, so I just have to give this one an L, unfortunately. But thankfully, our next game, Voltaire the Vegan Vampire, was a much better experience. It's basically Stardew Valley if it was in the style of Don't Starve, and it's a very fun and interesting experience. During the day, you scavenge around, searching for food, seeds, water, and various other materials, while also planting those seeds and watering them. When you sleep and awake during the night, you need to then protect your crops from the mean monsters and creatures who come to stir up trouble. And once you've dealt with all of them, you get to choose an upgrade, which adds a slight roguelike element to the game. This simple yet involving cycle was really fluid, and I wanted to keep playing this game. The progression of planting, farming, and various other tasks, although simple, makes this game really fun to pass the time with. W. Then we have Aetherborn, a very spiritual and enlightening, perspective-shifting puzzle platformer. The visuals and artistic intent is absolutely flawless, and along with a gorgeous soundtrack makes this game beautiful to play. Although this game does nothing I haven't seen before, completing the puzzles through walking on the walls and ceilings was really fun and clever to figure out. Other perspective shifting platformers would have you press a button to change gravity or so forth, but in Aetherborn you simply follow the paths until you cross over a ramp that smoothly transitions you. I don't have a whole lot to say about it as it's a very simple game, but it's a beautifully crafted puzzle game. Easy W. Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth is our next game, and it's a very clearly aged horror game from Bethesda, surprisingly. You first get a cutscene of some guy hanging himself in Arkham Asylum? What the hell? Before cutting 6 years earlier to him as a detective, exploring this cult crack shack. Now firstly, old PC controls were so whack. There's leaning, which is cool, but S to interact and X to move backwards? The game seems very outdated, even for 2006, but hey, they have a working mirror, which made my game crash and made me lose all my progress, but it's still cool. The story does seem very interesting, and if the game wasn't so old and buggy, I probably would have played it some more, but I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and give it a W. Our next game is Sparklight, a very interesting kind of roguelike game. It's basically a roguelike, but with a mix of a bunch of other games and genres that somehow works really well, just doing its own thing. You have your hub area in the sky with all your shops that you go to once you die, and after you're done up here, you drop down onto the ground and basically progress like a roguelike, attacking enemies, collecting items, and exploring new places. It's kind of like The Binding of Isaac and Enter the Gungeon in a lot of ways. Along your way, you can also find new characters and events, my favorite being Monty with his game show. This guy was absolutely hilarious. But then once you're back on the Sky Station thing, you can upgrade shops to unlock more items to grab and your basic game hub needs. Throughout the game, everything felt more polished than I was expecting, and I spent a lot more time with the game than I was expecting. Easy W. And then we have Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, of course based on the film with the same name. I actually had high hopes for this one and expected quite a fulfilling and polished story game, and thankfully it succeeded. In the beginning, you follow Ed Miller with a very unfortunate series of events. The game feels like a mix between Telltale's games and constant quick time events, even though it doesn't really matter what you do, but I guess it's better to have them than not. We then play as a psychologist needing to examine Ed's memories and mental state to come to a conclusion on something. I never really watched the movie. Then, in Ed's memory, he's interrupted during his writing to some hiker with a sprained ankle, and I've gotta say, this bitch has some nerves, man. She pulls up to our house in the middle of nowhere, puts her bloody ankle on our clean couch, we get her some ice and give her a blanket, she sleeps all day, and then wakes up just to raid our kitchen and steal our expensive wine. Like, who the hell is she? But I guess she makes up for it. For a game about a writer, the writing does have its ups and downs, but this one line makes up for everything. Meow. The game is a very intriguing puzzle/Telltale-like game that honestly makes me want to play the whole game now. I really like this shit. W. And our final game is Valfaris, another 2D retro arcade shooter, but this one literally feels like 2D Doom. You crash land on an alien planet and fight through enemies until you reach a boss and repeat. Simple 2D action shit, right? But everything feels so polished and modernized. As you go through the levels, you pick up new weapons and upgrades that expand your kit and gives you more firepower to shoot enemies with. And these enemies are super cool, and the bosses are all very different from one another, all with their own gimmicks. This game moves really fast. Everywhere you go, shit seems to happen. It just feels like you took modern Doom, changed it into 2D, and it works. W. Now honestly, all things considered, I got even more sweet pulls from this round of Steam keys. Fanatical.com seems to be great with all of their purchases, but again, it's always a gamble. Although you don't seem to get a heap of shovelware from this site compared to others, you're also very unlikely to pull any expensive AAA game or even anything you actually wanted. Also, this is my first video that I used DaVinci Resolve for. I'm just trying it out because Wondershare Filmora, I'm just sick of its bullshit, man. But let me know if you notice a difference and I might stick with it. But leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you want to see more like this, and become a channel member if you want to support me and get some cool perks. Alright, love you guys.